The dramatic consequences of Labour's VAT policy on private education, I think, cannot be underestimated because it's showing on a week by week basis. What began as a manifesto promise to end tax breaks for the independent sector has rapidly escalated into a full blown crisis affecting schools, staff, pupils, and parents across the country. And the fallout is far more severe than the government ever predicted, and we're only at the beginning. The Independent Schools Council's 2025 census has revealed a record in fall in private school enrollment. Over 13,000 pupils have disappeared from independent classrooms over 12 months. A 2.4% drop, the sharpest decline since records began in 2012. The government claims that only 3,000 students would exit the sector. Reality has already quadrupled that number. And it's not just about lost pupils. Fees have soared. Average private day school costs rose by 22% last year to over 22,000 annually. Boarding school fees now eclipse 60,000. Schools are passing on VAT, but not always in full. Many are absorbing part of the cost through painful internal cuts. The policy doesn't merely hit the so-called elite, it's hurting precisely those families who are aspirational, not affluent, often dual-income households, sacrificing holidays, second cars or pensions to support a particular kind of education. And many of these families have children with special educational needs, the SEND sector, who have moved into the private sector after being failed by local provision, or because local provision delays for it takes about 2 years to register somebody as a SEND pupil. That's 2 years of education which is effectively lost. A mother named Kath shared her story. Her autistic son thrived in a small private school, but fee increases of up to 26% made it unaffordable, and she was forced to move him mid-year, an emotionally traumatic decision compounded by the lack of comparable support in the state sector. A recent NAHT survey confirms that state sector schools are already buckling. 98% of primary school heads say they cannot meet the needs of all their SEND pupils. Yet these are the very schools expected to absorb the overflow from the private sector. Schools themselves are making difficult decisions. Some are freezing teacher pay, cutting bursaries, postponing capital projects, laying off staff. Subject choices are narrowing. Latin, Greek and creative arts already endangered are first on the chopping block. In some schools, support staff are taking second jobs, teachers are working overtime, classroom sizes are increasing. Private education, once associated with privilege, is quietly becoming precarious. The result? A two-tier catastrophe. Smaller schools, including faith-based and SEND specialist institutions, are being priced out of existence, while larger public schools pass on the full 20% VAT onto their wealthiest clients and weather the storm. In the High Court, nearly 20 families, including those with SEN children and faith-based concerns, are mounting a legal challenge. Represented by top KCs, including Lord Pannick and Jeremy Hyam, they argue the policy is discriminatory and breaches human rights. They make a simple point. The policy doesn't distinguish between those who choose luxury and those who are forced into the independent sector because their children's needs are unmet by the state sector. Bruno Quinterval, representing Christian schools, called it an ill-thought-out proposal introduced in haste. It's hard to argue with that assessment. The government's defence has been consistent. The VAT policy is a fair revenue raiser intended to fund 6,500 new teachers and improve state provision. Treasury officials insist it will raise $1.8 billion annually by 2029 and affects only a tiny minority of pupils. So where are these 6,500 new teachers? The figures don't stack up. If enrollment drops too far, the projected revenue vanishes and the state system inherits pupils it cannot afford to teach. As Julie Robinson, chief executive of ISC, warned, it risks raising absolutely nothing, and yet the damage is already clear. Even schools like Eton are passing on the full 20% VAT, meaning annual fee increases of over £10,000. Meanwhile, smaller schools are not passing it on because they cannot and instead are facing financial collapse. This is not just about fees and class sizes, it's about the purpose of education in a civilized society. If we penalise those who make responsible, even sacrificial choices for their children's welfare, especially those with SEN or religious needs, we risk not a rebalancing of fairness but a collapse of diversity. Instead of levelling up, this policy threatens to level down. It disrupts lives, it damages trust, and potentially delivers neither revenue nor justice. In trying to fix inequality with a blunt tax instrument, we are exposing the most vulnerable and risking more than just school places. We are gambling with educational dignity. If we want to change education, we need to start by improving education before we sever the links.